What's going on? What's going on, everybody? It is Will here, and I am back for the Sunday solo show. Missed a couple weeks, but not this one. However, this one is a little late because I laid my son down to go to sleep, was laying with him, and I was like, oh, he'll fall asleep in a couple minutes, and then I will wake up, and then I will go over and do the podcast. Well, that was at 9 p.m., and I just woke up at 3:30 a.m. because I also passed out. So that's why this one's a little later. It was supposed to be at 9, probably posted by 10. Instead, you're going to be seeing this Monday morning, probably around 6 or 7 East Coast time. But we are here today to talk about the most predictable week of Sunday football this season. I mean, it was so predictable, in fact, that Casino and I picked every game correctly except Seahawks 49ers. And I know a lot of people did pick the 49ers. So if you just went straight up favorites in every game this week, you won. There was not one upset pick this week. All the favorites covered, or not covered. I think that's where they messed up because there were such heavy favorites. Like, I know Eagles Browns was like 9.5, and that game ended up being 4. So none of them covered. But if you just went money line or just straight up picked them all the favorites like we did, you are maybe have a perfect schedule right now, because we talked about this on Thursday. This was probably the worst slate of games so far this season, just for week 6. I mean, the marquee matchups, like we said on Thursday, we were struggling to find any. We got, let's see, if we just go through, we did 49ers Seahawks, which ended up kind of being, it looks like a blowout on paper, but that game was much closer than the final score would indicate. Kind of San Francisco pulling away late on that one. Commanders Ravens, that one was pretty much Ravens the whole game, and Commanders kept getting within 7, within 7, within 7, and then we're just never able to go to it. And then Lions Cowboys, I mean, that was marquee just for what happened last year. And let's actually start with that game. So let's start with Lions Cowboys. I mean, I watched all of this game because obviously, if you've listened to the show before, I am an Eagles fan. So anytime the Cowboys can just get annihilated on television, I'm watching, right? I watched almost the entirety of this game just because I'm a masochist at heart and love to see a team just get annihilated again and again, especially at home, which I think is the main takeaway. If you're a Cowboys fan, if you're talking about the Cowboys, is just how does this keep happening to this team at home? So we look at their schedule. Week 1, they obviously killed the Browns, which we'll get to Eagles Browns in a minute, but everybody should kill the Browns. And if you don't, there's something wrong with your team. Foreshadowing. But then they get killed 44-19 with the Saints, right in at home. The next week they lose 28-25 to the Ravens. Not bad. Then they win by 5 against a Giants team that's way better than I think everybody, including ourselves on this podcast, thought they would be. They win by 3 on the last second touchdown in the Pittsburgh Steelers games. That's on the road. And then they lose 47-9 today at home again. So far they have lost home games that were 9-47, where they scored 9, and then they lost 19-44 against the Saints in that week 2 game, where myself included, with a lot of people, were like, oh my God, this Saints offense is going to be unstoppable all season and electric. And that was basically their first 2 weeks for their magnum opus. And then they've been basically an average NFL team pretty much since week 2? Yeah, their peak was week 1 and week 2, and now they're just every other average NFL team in the world. So not looking good for the Cowboys. Luckily, after this one, they go on the bye week. If anything was going to happen with Mike McCarthy, I think this would be the week where it would happen, on this bye week. But then again, you come back from that and you just have, I mean, your worst stretch of the schedule by far this season. After the bye, you have, let's see, you have 49ers, who look like they have finally found their place as being the team that they have been the past couple of years, right? In the Shanahan era. So you have 49ers, then Falcons, then Eagles, then Texans, then Commanders. So right there, not a gimme, not an easy game in any of those upcoming matchups. I mean, again, we talked about how bad they are at home. They're playing Eagles, Texans at home. So both those, I don't think the Eagles, we'll talk about them in a second. I don't think they're blowing out anybody, but they could easily get blown out by the Texans, who look like they finally found their footing. They got blown out by the 49ers last year, so that could happen again. Falcons, I mean, they're putting up 30 points every week, over almost 40. They put up 38 today. So, yeah, if you're a Cowboys fan, I mean, comment down below if you're watching on YouTube, and just what's your outlook for this season. Now, I know we're you know, enemies, right? Because I'm an Eagles fan, you're a Cowboys fan, but I don't like what I see from my team. I don't like what I see from your team. And I think we can both agree that the best team in our division right now is the Commanders, shockingly enough, but which we'll get to in a minute. But let's talk about a game that I said on Thursday. If the Eagles lost, I would be on this podcast and it would just be a 45-minute rant about what is wrong with this Eagles team. And instead, I kind of just watched this game, just kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop, and not necessarily in a negative way, just kind of in any way, right? So it was just a weird game. Eagles win 20-16. Cleveland does nothing on offense the entire game. There were all the memes and stuff and worries from Eagles fans leading up to this game, where it was like, Deshaun Watson has been rough. He's been bad this entire season. Watching this game, I am now confident, and we'll do this indefinitely, maybe, and I don't know, coming up, that he's the worst quarterback in the league. Worst starting quarterback in the league, maybe worst second or third string quarterback in the league. When you watch him play, you're like, oh my God, how is this guy? And again, everybody says, well, they paid him so much money. They paid him so much money. And it's like, yeah. And you've already paid it to him. So why not try somebody else? I mean, it's gonna screw you either way. It screws you where your team is now 1-5 and you're paying this guy a shitload of money, or it screws you where you're 1-5, you're starting a new quarterback, and you're paying this guy a shitload of money. It's just like one of those things. Like, does anybody in that organization, coaches, front office, anybody honestly think that all of a sudden he's just going to get it one week and they're going to be like, this is why we stuck with him? Like, there's question marks with a bunch of other teams and quarterbacks. There's no question marks with Deshaun Watson. He's done. As the kids say, as my sons say, whose room I obviously record this in because he has the best computer in the house, he's cooked. There's no other way to put it. He's cooked. He's done. No debate whatsoever. I can debate anybody with most takes in this NFL season. The take that I cannot get on board with is, oh, Deshaun Watson, he's just not in the right fit. He just needs more time. He's not doing, like, the coaching staff's failing him. It's like, you watch him play, he's just throwing balls into the ground. Like, it's like his guy, it's not like, oh, there's no separation. His guys can't get open. His guys are open. He overthrows them by 10 feet. Like, he overthrows jump balls to his players by 5 feet in the air. Like, I don't know what you're watching. And again, you can go watch and listen to a bunch of other football shows or YouTube things where it's like, oh yeah, let's break down Deshaun Watson this season. I guarantee none of them will be like, he's actually really good and the wide receivers and schemes are failing him. Like, there's no way, unless you're trying to be like a hot take guy of like, oh, I'm just going to zig when everybody zags. But so as far as the Browns, I mean, everybody thought he would have a career day against the Eagles, and he goes 60 for 23, 168 yards. Really nothing there. Again, the Browns today scored no touchdowns except on a weird blocked field goal, which, again, when you watch the Eagles play, especially in this game, they had like their best team win today in this game, which it was like the defense has been playing actually pretty good. Like, if you look at the Eagles, and I'm going to pull them up right now. If you look at the Eagles defense the last couple games since they had that really weird defensive performance. So week one, again, I'm willing to, for both Packers and Eagles, just throw out the window. Weird circumstance. Field wasn't football ready. I've already said this. I've already made this point. Then you have week two against the Falcons, a game they lead the entire game, and then primetime Kirk Cousins just rears his head and turns into not Minnesota Cousins, who the Eagles would always dominate, but Commanders slash Redskins, Kirk Cousins, who would always dominate the Eagles, right? Who always had his best game against the Eagles in division. They come back and win by one. Then high powered Saints putting up 40 every week. Vic Fangio puts on a masterclass in defense, shuts down that entire Saints offense, and they score 12 points. Not the Eagles, the Saints score 12 points, right? Then they play Tampa Bay and just get annihilated. That really felt like the game where it was like, oh, Eagles are bad, right? But now looking back on that, it's like they had basically their every good offensive player they had was injured, and then they knew the game plan. Them being the Bucks knew the game plan was Saquon Barkley, stop him, and there's nothing, right? So by week I was one of those people that I was like, after that Bucks game, after you've seen the Bucks annihilate you twice, is this the time to get rid of Sirianni? No, they don't get rid of Sirianni. He comes back. The most talked about sports story today was Nick Sirianni shaved his head. Apparently, that's a big oh my God, we need to have 5-minute rants about him shaving his head as if that means anything. Like he just got a haircut. I don't get why we do this thing where it's like coach came back in a real big different way. It's not like they're in a huge winning streak. This isn't like baseball or hockey where it's like they're growing out their hair for to avoid a curse or blah blah blah. It's like the guy just got a haircut and now we need to have 5-minute discussions about like what does this mean with his about his place with the team. And it's just that's the shit I hate in sports media where it's just like maybe the guy just got a haircut. Like the Occam's razor thing. Can we just maybe that's it? Maybe he just got a haircut? Like, but no, it's like, oh, trying a new look. And then it's the thing where it's like he's yelling at fans, and then there were reports where it was like, oh, the entire stadium at halftime's chanting fire Sirianni. And then people who were at the game were like, no, they weren't. They didn't hear it once, was there the whole game. And then it's like all the players loved when he was attacking again, like yelling at the fans. Who knows if it was Browns fans? Who knows if it was jackass Eagles fans? I know jackass fans of their own team is strictly a Philadelphia thing. That's never with any other team. But again, I'm not this huge Sirianni supporter. If they fired him during the bye, I wouldn't have been outraged. If they keep him the rest of the season, I won't be outraged. We'll see how the rest of the season goes to where if they keep him for next year, I'll be outraged. So again, I'm kind of just fence sitting, middle of the road on Sirianni. You can make me a case why and why he shouldn't be fired, but like this insane notion that it's just like he should be fired because he got a haircut and because he's yelling at fans. Like, why? Those are the things I care the 0% about. I don't give a shit. All the players seem to love that side of him where he's the crazy yelling, guy and showing the emotion and going up to players and, dabbing them up and all that kind of stuff. Like that's all this stuff like I actually like. The Eagles are the number one hated fan base team, whatever, maybe in all of sports, definitely probably in the NFL. So this notion where it's just like your coach is an asshole. It's like if you had the best coach in the world, it wouldn't matter with your perception of the Eagles or Eagles fans. So why does it matter? Like the motto of the Eagles is of the fan base and what they chant and sing, myself included, is no one likes us, we don't care. So again, this whole thing where it's just like our coach is an asshole that nobody likes. It's like, good. He should be. Nobody's going to like him regardless. Half the fan base is not going to like him over half the time. That's just how passionate the fan base is, which again, I am privy to. I am guilty of. So when it comes to all the outside noise, that stuff doesn't bother me. Now, what does bother me is again, This game ended being 20-16. Take away the botched field goal weird block thing. Again, Miles Garrett blocked it. It's not like fifth or sixth string linebacker on special teams blocked it. And you're like, how does that happen? It's like the best defensive player in the league made a best defensive player in the league play. Now that might be coping, that might be um what is it, just trying to rationalize it, but that is what happened. And if that wouldn't have happened because that was the end of half, the score would have finished 20-9, which I said it needed to be a blowout and I said it needed to be 35-10. So Casino thought it would be 28-10. So again, take away that touchdown, maybe swing one more touchdown towards the Eagles, and we're doing this thing where it's like, oh, it's kind of happened how we did. Now, the things that were the worst case doom and gloom with the Eagles fans and people leading up to this game was Deshaun Watson's going to have a career day. He was 16 for 23, 168 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Not one time in that game did it ever feel like he was going to beat the Eagles today. So, you know, there was nothing there. Cleveland rushed for 100 yards. Again, it was just a Pierre Strong, Foreman. They were averaging, I mean, Pierre Strong averaged 5 yards a carry, but he got 8 carries for 40 yards. Diabonte Foreman, 10 carries, 31 yards. Deshaun Watson also rushed for 17. So Cooper got 42 yards, 6 targets. Judy had 1 catch for 35 yards. No interceptions, no fumbles. They sacked Cleveland 5 times. So time of possession was basically even, and then penalties are basically even. So you look at this game, and my main takeaway from this is defense has been playing great, right? I mean, the outlier being the Tampa Bay game. I think they even played pretty good in the Packers game. So really, of the 6 or 5, because they had the bye week, 5 games they've played this season, only in one of the games would I say their defense played bad, and that was obviously the Tampa Bay game. The Falcons game and this game are concerning to me because those both feel like coaching wins and losses, right? So the Falcons game felt like a coaching loss, just poor decisions, weird football schemes and strategies, and just awareness, right? And then this game just again feels like the blocked field goal never happens to the Chiefs, right? That just feels like one of those fluky things that only happens to bad coach teams, poorly coached teams, only happens to teams where you're like not scared of them dominating you, right? That seems just like a weird football gods kind of thing where it's like only bad coach teams get blocked field goals. Now, again, what's the merits of that? I have no examples of that. That's just feeling. That's just I know we're not supposed to do feelings over facts, but that kind of feels like a feeling that's also a fact. I would assume that the best coaches in history have the fewest blocked punts and blocked field goals against them and just weird shit like that. So I think the main things to take away from this game are if you're an Eagles fan, defense once again played pretty good. I wouldn't say great. I would say pretty good. I think this defense is starting to have the pieces. Young guys are stepping up. Cooper DeJean played really well in this game. Quentin Mitchell looks like the steal of the draft in terms of what he kind of looks like, in the vein of how Sauce Gardner, the year he came out, you were like, oh wow, this guy's really good. Like, I think we underestimated how good this guy would be. And then within 2 years of that, he's one of the best cornerbacks in the league. To me, he really does feel like he's in that category where Quentin Mitchell, there's rumors that Darius Slay is going to be traded by the trade deadline. If we can get something back for him, I think that would be a good move. But I've always liked Darius Slay. I think his online persona is why most people are annoyed by him, not his on-field play. So again, if we can get a haul for him, if the Eagles can get a haul for him, I'd be fine with that because I like uh the young core of cornerbacks that the Eagles have. Now, again, like every game this season for every team, I feel like injuries are just stacking up. So I would much rather have depth than like a second round pick next year, whatever you get for Slay. But Jalen Hurts had maybe his best game of the season outside of the Packers game. And even in the Packers game, he turned the ball over. This game, 2 touchdowns, also had some big running plays, had great deep passes to both AJ Brown, great checks and changes at the line to make, the touchdown to Brown happen, touchdown to Devontae Smith happen. Just again, I like the offensive play calling this year. I don't like it in the first quarter, but it kind of feels like their stock or no, what's it called? Like their startup plays where they're like, these are what we have lined up, right? They're like pre-planned plays where they're, you always hear coaches have the first 15 plays planned out. Those never seem to work well. It always feels like once they get out of that and they're like, okay, now let's just play to the rhythm of how the game's playing. All of a sudden their offense picks up and then they start moving the ball. And I thought today Hurts was great. No turnovers, no fumbles, no interceptions, not even close to an interception or fumbles. So hopefully that's a trend that continues. So I don't have heart attacks every week. Obviously, this offense is a million times better and a million times different when they have Brown and Devontae Smith. You could tell that almost from snap one in this game that those two guys on the field makes this whole offense click. And obviously the best wide receivers on a team are going to make the offense and moving the ball much easier. But also Grant Caltera just stepping up in the absence of Dallas Goedert, 4 receptions, 67 yards. He also had a lot of good blocks, a lot of good plays. He was all over the field. It felt like he was always open. Only targeted 4 times, caught all four targets. So yeah, again, I feel like the notion around this game is really negative because everybody was expecting the Browns to just get the doors blown off them. But again, besides that weird fluky blocked kick, the Eagles dominated pretty much this entire game, and it never really felt like the Browns had a chance, even when it was 20-16 or even going into halftime when it was tied 10-10. It was like the Eagles have dominated this game from minute one. Like, I don't know. I'm looking at like Sky is Falling posts and all that kind of stuff. It wasn't the best game in the world, but I also was not depressed or nervous literally at any point during this game. I was more like when the block kick happened, I was like, of course, the Eagles have dominated this whole game and they're going to go in tied. Like that just seems like, yeah, of course. Like, last game I wanted to talk about individually, and then we'll get into definitely maybe, I don't know, was the Ravens and the Commanders. Uh, First off, great game. I had this one on the little screen while I was watching Browns Eagles on the big screen, and it was just my focus kept being drawn to the Ravens Commanders game because obviously the Eagles Browns game was a miserable matchup, and this was the marquee matchup of the week. I think me and Casino both agreed this. If we weren't trying to make a marquee miserable kind of even, this would have been the only game in the marquee section, and it did pretty much live up to the hype. I think the Jaden Daniels, we'll get to the Caleb Williams thing where I think the Bears are a little bit overrated. I do not think that the Commanders are overrated because we've seen them go. They're 4-2 right now, without question the best team in the NFC East, which is what we just talked about with the Cowboys and the Eagles. And I really do think the Commanders, they look like a team that can kind of just hang with anybody. They look like either they're going to beat you or they're going to be there till the last play of the game. Again, in my lifetime, I've never seen the Redskins / Commanders be good in my football watching lifetime. So I don't have, even as a team in my own division, I've never really had an opinion on the Commanders / Redskins. It's kind of always just been a team. I've always hated how they at least beat the Eagles once a year, no matter how bad their team is. They always just seem to have the Eagles number. But besides that, I've never really had a strong opinion on them either either or. So it is kind of nice to just see a new team in the mix, that a team that in my lifetime has not been really on anybody's radar, right? And I'm talking my football lifetime since I started watching in what, when I was 8 or 9. So since 98, 99. Like, I mean, there's been some outlier years, but in terms of any memorable teams besides the RG3 year where he took the league by storm with rookie quarterback, right? There really hasn't been anything. And that's what I hope doesn't happen with Jaden Daniels, because again, his size is what's always scared me. But you look at the teams they beat this year. I mean, they lost to the Bucks. We'll get to the Bucks and definitely maybe, I don't know. The Bucks look pretty damn good. They beat the Giants, they beat the Bengals, they destroyed the Cardinals. They blew out the same Browns team we were just talking about, and then they lost by 7 points to the Baltimore Ravens, who at this point is what, a top 5 team in the NFL. So, if you're a Commanders fan, if you're a Redskins fan, if you're a Jaden Daniels fan, how are you not coming out of this game being like, yeah, we lost by 7 points, but we also uh intercepted Lamar Jackson. We got ran over by Derrick Henry, and Lamar Jackson also passed for 323 yards against us. Like, yeah, that's what the Ravens do. Though again, you took basically the best punches the Ravens offense had, which is Lamar Jackson rushing for 40 yards, throwing for over 300, Derrick Henry carrying the ball 24 times for 132 yards and 2 touchdowns, Zay Flowers being their number one target, and then you still were right there with them till the end, right? I mean, at halftime it was 17-10, and then you're coming into the fourth quarter, you get 10 points, it's 30-23 final, and you're like, we took the best of what they had and basically lost by 1 point, right? Or one score, I should say. And I think if you're the Commanders, you're a rookie quarterback, new coaching staff, completely rebuilt offense and defense, and you went toe to toe with statistically one of the best teams in the NFL in the past decade. So it's like one of those things where you kind of like shrug your shoulders and you're like, nobody thought you guys were going to win. It would have been an upset shocker if you did win, but you kind of hung with them the whole time. Again, I kept getting, even though I was watching it on my phone, I kept getting updates from the NFL app where it was like, Commanders pull it within 7. And then 10 minutes would go by and it'd be like, Commanders pull it back, pull back against the Ravens within 7. And it just, that felt like the game where it was like Ravens would start to get a little ahead in momentum and score. And then it would just kind of be like, up, Commanders are right there. Commanders are coming back. They're right there. And it just felt like that was the whole game. That was the whole game. Now, when it comes to the Commanders, their defense is vastly improved to what I thought they would be, or what they were and what I thought they would be, which was a bottom 5 defense. Now they're a mid 15 to, I would say, 12 to 16 range defense, which I think is all you have to be in this league to win, right? I think you just have to have a middle of the road defense and up. It's always the teams with the lower end defenses that lose games. So their defense has improved. I don't know how much I like about their running attack. I feel like it feels oddly similar to the Buffalo Bills, where it's like your quarterback is basically your rushing game. So when he doesn't run, it doesn't open up anything in the running game. And then Jane Daniels in this game, 6 carries, 22 yards, and he was the leading rusher. So Eckler couldn't get going. I believe Brian Robinson was out for this game, so he's obviously their number one back, kind of the 1-2 punch with Eckler. And yeah, nothing from Jaden Daniels on the ground, which is good because, again, I've said on this podcast this entire season, I hate when he runs because he never slides and he just gets annihilated on hits. And he looks tiny, and he never looks tinier than when he runs. It just gets annihilated. I mean, that Giants game, I couldn't believe he wasn't injured after that game or knocked out in that game. I think he was knocked out in that game for a couple plays, but there were some hits where he had a 250-pound guy running full speed at him who just spears him right in the ribs. And it was just one of those things where it was like, I don't want my 190-pound string bean looking quarterback to be getting annihilated by a guy running full speed at his ribs. But again, the only concern I have with Jaden Daniels is his size and injuries. When it comes to everything quarterback or football field or anything like that, no, I think he's the real deal. I've said about Caleb Williams, I also think he's the real deal. I just think the expectations for Caleb Williams this season were asinine, were dumb, were stupid, this were one of the dumbest things I've ever seen with like the preseason hype and all that kind of stuff. But as far as Jaden Daniels goes, I mean, he's 6 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I know he also has, I believe, yeah, it's 4 rushing touchdowns as well. So he has 10 touchdowns and about 5 turnovers. Like for a rookie quarterback, that's pretty good, especially on a rookie quarterback on a team nobody thought would do anything this year, right? Except obviously by co-host Casino on the Only Sports Podcast. So yeah, let's gone about 30 minutes. Those were kind of the games I wanted to talk about. Uh so let's go to definitely maybe and I don't know, and then we'll get out of here. So definitely maybe and I don't know. This is the NFL Week 6 edition. So let's get to it. Definitely, maybe, I don't know. These are things that I definitely know after this week, the things that I don't know after this week, and the things I maybe know after this week, not in that order. So let's start first with the definitely. And the definitely, I have it written in my notes here. The definitely, and I just talked about it. So this is a classic Will Only Sports Podcast Segu. Uh, the Bears are overrated. We need to stop looking at their schedule and stop acting like, oh my God, I mean, Jaden Daniels, you see what he's doing, but look what Caleb Williams and the Bears are doing. Like Caleb Williams, again, is having a great season for a rookie quarterback. He is not having a great, oh my God, this is the next Patrick Mahomes season, right? It's like those were the things where it was like, can we calm down? Can we pump the brakes a little? The teams they have beat are the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Carolina Panthers, the Los Angeles Rams, and the Tennessee Titans. So the Rams, again, are have one win and their entire offense is injured. They have no defense. They have the worst defense in the league. And then you look at the Titans, a game they probably were going to lose until Will Levis threw the pick six, right? Like that game was basically over. And then Will Levis was, again, the jokes we made after that game was Will Levis was the best quarterback the Bears had that day. Caleb Williams, I believe in that game, threw less than 100 yards. And then they lose against the Texans. Then they lose at the Colts. And now they've rattled off 3 wins against, again, Rams, Panthers, Jaguars, the 32nd, the 31st, and the 30th worst defenses in the league. Now, again, all those games except for the Rams games were blowouts. They blew out the Panthers, they blew out the Jaguars. So are those both impressive? Yes. Do I really like the Bears defense? Yes. But in terms of when you're looking at this team where I'm seeing, you know, still the same talking heads being like, this team's going to the Super Bowl. It's like, what games are you watching? Now, yeah, Caleb Williams is getting better each week. He's also playing the worst teams week after week compared to when he was also playing bad teams at the beginning of the season. So in this game, I mean, Trevor Lawrence actually had a pretty good game too against that vaunted Bears defense, but Caleb Williams, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, 226 yards. And then DeAndre Swift went off for 17 carries, 91 yards, 1 touchdown. So again, I'm not saying they are bad. I'm just saying we need to pump the brakes on like, this is a Super Bowl team because we've only seen them beat and play well against bad teams and even like middling teams, right? Where it's like the Titans with the number 1 defense in the league, they basically lose that game if Will Levis doesn't throw up the worst pass you're going to probably see all season. So it's this weird thing where I like the Bears. I really like their defense. I think their offense is finally kind of clicking, but I like them to finish kind of like a 8-9 team, 9-8, maybe 10-7, right? And it's just yeah, and then I just have to listen and watch all these talking heads be like, "This is a Super Bowl team. This is a Super Bowl contender." And it's like, "No, they're not. No, they're not." We do this every year where it's like the rookie quarterbacks leading teams, and then when they get to the playoffs, it's a whole different story, right? Like last year, it was CJ Stroud, and everybody was like, he's the new best quarterback in the league. He's going to the Super Bowl, and then he lost his second playoff game in like blowout fashion. And it's kind of just like, this is what happens. Like and again, nothing against Caleb Williams. It's not on him. It's on the media and this insane thing where it's like, he's Patrick Mahomes right now. And it's like, can we stop comparing every quarterback in the that comes in the league and starts doing well to the best quarterback we've maybe ever seen outside of Tom Brady? Like, can we stop doing this? Remember for a couple years there, it was like, this guy's the new Tom Brady. This guy's the new Tom Brady. When they would have like a good game, and it'd be like, you realize Tom Brady's because of the longevity, because he's been playing for over 20 years, because he's won 7 Super Bowls, right? It's like, can we pump the brakes on this thing where it's like, never seen him play a snap? So far this season, he has 9 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 3 fumbles, no rushing touchdowns. So he has 9 touchdowns and 8 turnovers. Like, he's good. Again, he's good. He's fine. He's a good rookie quarterback. But this thing of like, Bears are Super Bowl contenders. It's like they're the 4th best team in their own division. Nobody would pick them right now in a playoff game against the Packers, the Lions, or the Vikings. Like, we need to pump the brakes. We need to pump the brakes on the Bears. Next up, we just talked about them briefly. Ravens, Texans do feel like the only teams that can dethrone the Chiefs. They really do. I'm not doing the Buffalo thing again. Even if they win tomorrow, which Casino picked the Bills to win, my upset pick of the week was I think the Jets are going to win in a squeaker. I think they're going to win by 3 points, last second field goal with the Jets tomorrow. But you look at AFC East, we're not doing the Bills. I don't think the Jets are good. I think that division you win with 9 wins, right? If the Bears are in the AFC East, I think they would be the best team in the AFC East. But right now they're not. AFC North, Steelers, I still don't think Justin Fields can go into Kansas City and get a W against Patrick Mahomes, but they might be the only outlier team where I'm like, maybe with that defense, with what we've seen from Justin Fields this year, maybe. But when you look at the other things, we already saw Kansas City rip out the heart of the Chargers, where they had a 10-point lead that instantly vanished and they won that game, right? So Chargers would have been my pick. They're out. Only 2 teams in the AFC East, or the AFC, sorry, just in general, are Ravens and Texans. Texans are 5-1, Ravens are 4-2. Obviously, Ravens have won 4 in a row after starting 0-2. Probably should have gone into OT against the Chiefs, and then who knows? Maybe would have already seen the Ravens beat the Chiefs. But it really does feel like we're barreling towards an AFC championship game that is Texans Chiefs. And unless you're a hardcore Chiefs fan or I want to see the history with the historic three-peat and all that kind of stuff, I don't think there's going to be a person on this planet who is going to be rooting for Patrick Mahomes over CJ Stroud and the Texans in that game. Right? I don't think there's going to be a soul alive unless you're a fan of that team, even if you're a fan of the in division with the Texans. If you're a Colts, Titans, Jaguars fan, there's no way you're going to be rooting for the Chiefs in an AFC championship game against the Texans. But yeah, they don't play this season in the regular, or yes, they do. They play week 16. So I think that'll be a great 2-week period. Week 16, the Texans play at Kansas City, and then the next week they play at home against the Ravens. So right there, we'll see the 3 weeks where it'll be the only three teams I really think are possibly coming out of the AFC. Again, you can make the case for the Jets. You can make the case for the Bills. I want to see those two play tomorrow. There's something missing with both those teams. Now with the Jets, it's a coach. So, yeah, I don't know. I think definitely the only teams that who can dethrone the Chiefs in the AFC at least are the Ravens and Texans. Maybe in the whole NFL, because again, I don't know if you expand that to the NFC, if there's really anybody that sticks out as like, oh yeah, they can beat the Chiefs. Maybe outside of the Vikings if they continue their hot streak, and the Lions after what we saw today, but with Hutchinson going down, I don't know. Speaking of the Lions, I do think they're the best team in the NFC now. I know Vikings are 5-0, Detroit is 4-1. The Aiden Hutchinson had a gruesome injury today, gruesome leg injury, where I do think that really affects their defense. And going into this game, what the Lions were, oh man, the Lions are 22nd in total defense. So again, that scares me. Their pass defense, really lackluster, 27th. And then I think in rushing defense, they are fourth. So really, they have a great run defense, bad passing defense, which if you look at all the NFC contenders and teams, they're all passing offenses. So they're going to have to win most games in a shootout. Aiden Hutchinson going down, their best defensive player. No team gets better when their best defensive player is most likely out for the season. So I would say definitely the Lions right now are the best team in the NFC, but I want to see what their team looks like after Aiden Hutchinson is out and how they kind of adjust to that, if they can kind of get their defense right, because that scares me. That scares me. Now let's move on to the maybes as I take a drink of water because I'm losing my voice right here. Let's move on to the maybe. And this is exactly what it sounds like. These are things where it's like, maybe, maybe, maybe. And the maybe is maybe the Cowboys lose every game at home in a blowout. It's possible. Maybe. I've never seen, I don't want to say never seen, but I feel like every couple of years there's just that team that for whatever reason plays decent to good on the road and then for some reason at home just gets completely annihilated. Right? I know there's been some teams in the past where it was like for some reason this team can't win at home, and then it's just a travesty when they play at home and it's a comedy of errors and all this kind of stuff. This feels different because two of the three times they've played at home, they've gotten annihilated, which seems like a bigger problem when their bye week comes and they are still in this downward spiral. Is it finally the end of Mike McCarthy's time in Dallas? I mean, since he's gotten there, their team has just gotten slightly worse every season. I mean, this year, the slightly worse is they just have no running a game whatsoever. They're the worst running attack in the league, and I don't even think it's close. I just don't think they have anybody to run the football that not even would scare you, that would just slightly intimidate you, right? They have an Ezekiel Elliott who is washed. They have Dottle, who his best career game was like 70 yards on 22 carries or something like that last week. And then you see what they did today. They get blown out 47-9. And again, they did exactly what you want them to do. Dak Prescott threw the ball 33 times. He threw two interceptions. I mean, if you watch that game, which again, I watched the majority of it because I really liked it. He could have thrown 3 to 5 more interceptions just in terms of penalties that got called or time in the pocket or just bad throws. Like he was having a classic bad Dak Prescott game where it was he could have easily finished this game 0 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. 4 interceptions minimum is what he probably should have had. There was one interception that I think went to Branch that got negated by a penalty, but that's one of those terrible throws where you're going to look at the all 22 tape afterwards and be like, what was he seeing? Why did he throw that ball? It was bad. But this is what the Cowboys are, right? No running attack whatsoever. Doddle had 5 carries, 25 yards. Ezekiel Elliott had 8 carries, 17 yards. Dak Prescott's not running quarterback, so no running quarterback or no running yards or touchdowns from him. CeeDee Lamb was targeted 14 times. The next closest guy was targeted half that at 7. So that's just what the Cowboys are, right? It's just the Dak and CD show, no running attack. When Dak Prescott's not on, they lose by what, 38 points? So, I mean, I'm not good at math, but I'm pretty sure that's 38 points. So, yeah, or 39. I don't know. Again, it is when I'm recording this, it is 4:31 in the morning. So, yeah, I definitely or no, I maybe think that's a possibility. Let's stay in the NFC East. The NFC East is bad. I just think it's a bad division. All these teams are feisty, but you look at the Commanders 4-2, who again I think is the outlier in this division. I think they're really good, but again, does the rookie quarterback and just this new team put together, do they sustain this for an entire season? I think yes, but I think the question's worth asking. Eagles 3-2. Again, no, you cannot talk to any Eagles fan, including myself, that thinks like, oh, problem solved. This 4-point win against the Browns today, no issues whatsoever. It's kind of like I don't know what the Eagles are. I still don't. Heading into week 7. I have no idea what they are. I don't know what their identity is. I don't know what they're trying to be. I don't know where the disconnect from the talent and coaching is coming from. That again, they're only winning by 4 points against a Browns team that is awful. The Cowboys we just talked about, and then the Giants 2-4, losing 17-7 against a Bengals team that multiple times this season, including before the season started, I use the phrase dumpster fire, which I do still think is applicable instead of like, oh, they're back or they're a good team. They're still a 2-4 team that I don't like really anything on besides Joe Burrow. I don't like their running attack. I think they are very similar to the Eagles, where it's just a very talented team where there just is some disconnect between who they have on the field and the games they're playing. It just maybe the NFC East is bad, but definitely to throw it back, there's something up with the Bengals that I don't understand. Maybe Joe Flacco is elite. We talk about Joe Flacco every week on this podcast. I can't believe he is a backup quarterback in this league because the past 2-3 seasons, Joe Flacco, he's just back. He left. He had that one great Super Bowl winning year with the Ravens, and now he's just back. Right? Last year we saw this same Browns team that's 1-5 go on a deep playoff run with Joe Flacco at the helm. The only thing that changed was Joe Flacco's no longer there, and they go from perennial a game or two away from a Super Bowl appearance to now they can't buy a win, right? They go from potential Super Bowl dark horse to 1-5 in a season where really the only thing that changes is the quarterback. So maybe Joe Flacco is elite. Definitely he should be the starting quarterback on a team. You see so many bad quarterbacks. He's better than anybody on the Panthers. He's maybe better than anybody on the Raiders. If he was on the Broncos right now, would the Broncos potentially be 4-2, 5-1 instead of 3-3? Definitely better than anybody the Titans have. He might be better than Anthony Richardson, at least right now. Definitely better than anybody the Browns have. Then again, you can do toss ups with like, is he better than Derek Carr for the Saints? I would probably take Flacco over Carr right now. Besides those first 2 weeks, Carr's not really done anything for this Saints team this season. Obviously, he was injured today, but yeah, then you look at other teams. I think I would take him on the Jaguars right now over Lawrence. And then again, there's a couple other teams where I would definitely take him over Daniel Jones on the Giants. And then, yeah, so right there, I would take him over 5 to 7 starters in this league right now. Uh, but yeah, he's kind of, again, Joe Flacco is elite in terms of he just goes to teams and makes them better. So that is a maybe. Maybe he is elite. I think he might be. I don't think this is a definitely. I think it's a maybe. And then last up, I don't know, and then we'll get out of here. Uh, I don't know. Is Tampa Bay really, really good, or are they great? I don't know. I don't know. Today we saw them put up 51 points against the New Orleans Saints, led by Spencer Rattler. I already did my I don't like Spencer Rattler at all take. And then he actually played pretty decent for, again, his first start. 22 for 40, 243 yards, 1 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Uh, Not bad. But again, when you look at the Bucks, 51 points against the Saints defense that I actually think is pretty good. So 51 points from the Bake Show, 24 for 36, 325 yards, 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. You don't want to see 3 interceptions, but again, 4 touchdowns, 325 yards. They have a rushing attack. This guy came out of nowhere, picked him up on fantasy, Sean Tucker. So I have no running backs whatsoever. So please, Sean Tucker, take me to the promised land. They have Bucky Irving, who actually had a pretty decent game as well. 14 carries, 81 yards. Sean Tucker comes out of nowhere, 14 carries, 136 yards, 1 touchdown, averaging almost 10 yards a play. Godwin had the game of his life, 11 receptions, 125 yards, 2 touchdowns. But again, Buccaneers 4-2, Baker Mayfield on the redemption tour the past 2 seasons. And I don't know, are the Buccaneers good? Are they really, really good? Are they great? Are they the best team in the NFC? Are they one of the best teams in the NFC? I don't know. I don't know. Uh Next up, I don't know, but are the 49ers back? Because they kind of feel back, even though they're missing still a bunch of their key players, Christian McCaffrey included. They just kind of feel back. They're 3-3. They're when you look at their stats, I mean, they're top 5 in almost everything. So they're obviously way better than their record indicates. But Purdy, again, Thursday night, 18 for 28, 255, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, no turnovers, and he's throwing to Debo, Kittle, Ayuk, and Jennings. Like, that's the formula, right? The only person missing is Christian McCaffrey, and Jordan Mason has came in and just he didn't have his best game, but he's had a pretty damn good season since McCaffrey's been out. So the 49ers, are they back? I don't know. It kind of feels like they're back. They just the only piece missing is McCaffrey, and I know a couple guys on defense, but that was a good win in Seattle against the Seahawks team that I still think is pretty good. Uh I don't know, but I think I underestimated the Packers. Now, again, I don't think Jordan Love is having the best season, but I also do think that this was his maybe I'm back game, right? So there's been concerns from myself included about him being potentially injured this season and still doing that quarterback thing where he plays bad basically because he's injured, right? And this season so far, he has uh 12 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 1 fumble loss. So he's 12 touchdowns, 7 turnovers again, and he had that weird kind of stretch where he was maybe injured, had a couple bad games here and there. He missed 2 games, and yeah, he's kind of back. And the 3 games he's come back in, he's threw 4 touchdowns, 2 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns. Now again, he's also thrown 3 interceptions, one, excuse me. So the turnovers need to be cleaned up a little, but I do think they're kind of back. And I don't know. Are the Packers really good? Did I underestimate them? I think I definitely underestimated them, but I don't know if I would take them over the Vikings. I don't know if I would take them over the Lions again in their own division. So them again just being a product, kind of like the Bears, where they're a 4-2 team, but they're in a division with probably the only 2 teams better than them in the NFC. So are we going to have 3, 4, 2, 1 teams come out of here and go to the playoffs. We're definitely going to have 2. Are they one of the 2? I don't know. Do the Vikings fall off? Do the Packers kind of take their spot? I don't know. But again, they are only 1 game back of the Vikings. I think the Lions have a 1 game lead ahead of them, right? So did I underestimate the Packers? That's yes. Yes, I definitely did. Are they back? Are they a good team? Are they gonna do anything in this division or the playoffs? I don't know. We've already seen them lose to the Vikings, but again, they only lost by 3 points, but again, that's deceptive because they were kinda getting blown out that whole game and then kinda came back a little. So, I want to see this team. We'll see them in week 9 against the Lions. Obviously, we'll see them play the Bears twice. We'll see them play the Vikings again, and we'll see them play that Lions team in week 14 and in week 9. So the division games have never been more important for a division than maybe this division. I don't want to put in the last 10 years, who cares? But this season, definitely, it feels like the NFC North division games are the most important division games in the NFL because what separates you from being first and last a game, is a game and a half. Right. I mean, the Bears are bottom of that division at 4-2, or the Packers are bottom of that division at 4-2. Vikings atop of it at 5 wins. So what I do know is NFC North, probably the best division in football. What I don't know is if the Packers are good. If the Packers are good, if they're great, if they're bad, I don't know. And that right there, my friends, I always am like coming into this and I'm like, I wanted to just go half an hour. And then I double that and I go 57 minutes. So now my voice hurts. I'll be uploading this at 5 a.m. so you can watch it when you wake up. Yeah, this has been the Sunday solo show with Will. Hopefully, this is the continuing trend where now this is back, and I'll be back with you guys every Sunday, maybe Monday nights if there's a good Monday night game. I was almost going to record this Monday night tomorrow, but I was like, no, there was a lot to talk about today, even though all the favorites won. So, yeah, we'll be back, me and Casino on Tuesday, and adios. This has been the Sunday Solo Show with Will on the Only Sports Podcast YouTube and podcast feed. So, yeah, adios.